Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we are finally going to talk about Apocalypse. That's right, Apocalypse is confirmed, he's coming and we finally have a full ability breakdown. And he definitely has my attention. He seems to be a very interesting, far-reaching champion with many different abilities, with a relatively simple gameplay style, but definitely a lot of different abilities to buff your teammates and very interesting interactions. And overall, I do see him becoming a very relevant champion, potentially on defense, but definitely on offense as well. So first, kind of like few basic things. His prestige is very good, decent, better than most champions released this year. He's not going to be the prestige king, but it's going to be up there with the better of the champions. Now, he is obviously of mutant class, and he has abilities of bleed, weakness, poison, concussion, and degeneration. He also prevents opponents from purifying his debuffs, and that is extremely huge, especially since we have been seeing more tenacity debuffs and debuffs of such nature. In addition, we have seen more champions being released who can shrug off these debuffs, like Hitmonkey, like Mole Man, I know, Ronin, and basically, yeah, more and more champions these days are able to shrug off debuffs, especially with the increased visibility of tenacity nodes. So that is going to be super useful in itself. The fact that opponents cannot purify abilities, super good, especially against Korg, who is still a big pain in Alliance War defense. Is going to be helpful. I imagine him actually being quite a decent Korg counter, possibly. And fighting mutant champions, when fighting mutants, Apocalypse special attacks will be more impactful and allow him to ramp up genetic code. He is kind of like a mutant hunter in a sense, and we're going to cover that a bit later. He can also prevent evade, but that is not the strongest ability. It's kind of tricky and risky to get to it fully. And yeah, he's also going to be able to significantly enhance any mutant champion once per quest. His weaknesses against robots: stun immune, block penetration, poison, degeneration or debuff immune, and ramp time. Well, ramp time can be kind of like bypassed. Anyways, so we're going to start with his actual abilities, and I'm going to pause here and there to actually comment on them. So he has these persistent charges, max 4 of them, that are going to be called genetic code. He starts each quest with 1, and if you face him as defender, he's going to have 2 as a default and 3 if he's a final boss. So he is going to be similar to the champion, for instance, where he gets stronger if he's a final defending boss. Knocking out a non-robot opponent grants 1 genetic code. So basically the innate mutant weakness is robot champions, and that is the same case here. You do not gain any genetic codes if you knock out robots, but you do gain in any other matchup. Additionally, gain 2 genetic code at the start of the fight when fighting a mutant, and that is kind of like very important, because you're going to be able to enter the first fight with 3 genetic codes. If your first fight is mutant, knock it out and you're going to be fully ramped already. So if you happen to face off a mutant first, you're going to be able to basically ramp him up in one fight, or there is a synergy that helps you ramp him out immediately at the start of the quest as well. At the start of the fight, gain 1 indefinite passive prowess for each genetic code, increasing special damage by 40%. So 4 max would be 160% passive damage increase, which is obviously quite significant, and which is going to make his special attacks hit hard. But not just that, they are passive, so they can't be nullified, gotten rid of. At 3+ genetic code, become stun immune while striking. That's ability very similar to what Annihilus has, and it's largely going to be useful in order to avoid parrying. Also, you will be safely able to use him, for instance, him in Alliance War against opponents like, I don't know, Nova, who can trigger these parries on auto block. So even if you get auto blocked by your opponent, you're not going to get stunned. Against Medusa, against Thor Ragnarok, against a whole bunch of other champions that would be able to parry you on auto blocks, or just in general. Recently, I have especially noticed myself that I am getting parried more frequently because AI is getting better and better. At 4+ genetic code, striking the opponent's block with light attack inflicts stun debuff for 0.8 seconds, cooldown 12 seconds. This has no effect against well-timed blocks. This is actually very cool ability, which is going to be super fun to use, because you can effectively use him as an unblockable champion to a degree, because you can just dash in at opponent, land your medium hit, land your first light, opponent gets stunned, and you can just finish out a combo. and yeah, you don't need to worry about getting an opening, and that ability is huge in my opinion, because it's always these champions who gain openings into opponent easily that typically are very useful and good, provided they have decent damage output. As an example, Aegon ramped up is very easy to play. Nick Fury, when he goes unblockable, is an absolute beast, so on and so forth. So champions who can access unblockable very easily, plus have a decent damage output, typically do quite well in this game, and I expect Apocalypse, possibly, hopefully, to be one of them. If they don't kind of like butcher him down with the numbers or actual gameplay. But so far I'm definitely very optimistic about the champion, and I think it's extremely valuable because it does help you kind of like get openings when you really need them and land your combos to transfer Bane or do whatever else. Now we have total molecular control, and this is the more underwhelming kind of like bit of his set. Develop immunity to bleed, incinerate, and disorient effects over 8 seconds while suffering from them. Once developed, these immunities persist for entire quest. Now this is going to be good for bleed, yes, because you can run suicide masteries, bring in Apocalypse within 8 seconds. That double edge bleed is going to get basically purified, and then every other fight you will start, he's going to be bleed immune, and that's going to help you mitigate the suicide damage. That is certainly helpful. However, when it comes to mitigating the incinerate and disorient effects, suffering 8 seconds from something, especially potentially towards endgame, might as well very well kill you. If this included poison, I would be really hyped. But typically, incinerates don't mess about in most of these quests, and 8 seconds is quite large time. So I'm not entirely sure how practical the rest of this stuff is going to be, but at the very least, he will have some sort of pseudo-suicide friendly kit, I would say. Each time the opponent evades, gain 10% chance to bypass evade. This is not affected by ability accuracy reduction, and chance to bypass evade persists throughout the quest. And this is, again, even though it's listed as his strengths, I do not consider this to be particularly kind of like hardcore evade counter, because having to worry about opponent evading like 9-10 times is still significant amount of evades you need to survive. And yes, you can be very careful and patient, but there are far more champions who bypass evade effects fully, completely from get-go in the quest, and I do not think this is going to be a reliable way how to counter evade in most scenarios, because let's say in Alliance War type of situation, when you mess up one evade, that might be the only evade that matters, because you might just get KO'd with a single combo, and especially in kind of like harder type contents. So I would not put too many eggs in this evade counter basket, but it's still a nice little thing to have, I suppose. And opponents suffer 100% purifiability reduction. That is definitely useful, especially because I mentioned we see more and more of these tenacity nodes. We see champion kits that purify stuff, and it's very good to see that. I'm super happy we have a champion that prevents opponents from purifying. Keep in mind, this will also work when you're facing off against Apocalypse, and you will not be able to purify your own suicide masteries or debuffs that you might have, so that is quite important. Heavy attacks. Both hits inflict bleed, but that bleed's tiny, but it's still a debuff. Refresh personal weakness, poison, concussion, and degeneration effects on the opponent. This is the important bit. So basically, you will still want to spam your heavy attacks in order to refresh the debuffs that you place on opponent. But on the bright side, the debuffs that you place on opponent do have quite a large duration, so you will not have to spam heavy attacks necessarily entire fight. Now, special attacks. If the opponent is suffering from a damage over time effect, which he will, special attack debuffs trigger on activation and last 30% longer. That is a solid increase. So what you will want to do in most cases is kind of like chain your special attack, chain your special attack from your heavy attack, or chain your basically special attack to heavy attack. Then you apply a single bleed, and then you get this bonus immediately, kind of like past your heavy attack. Each hit deals a burst of 615 physical damage for each personal weakness poison. Okay, that's kind of cool. You get additional damage. Hopefully it scales with promise buffs, and hopefully it does actually significant amount more once you have that 160% increased prowess. Now, how special one inflicted debuff determined by the last light or medium thrown if fighting mutant, if Apocalypse has 4 generic codes, trigger both. So basically, light attack, you inflict weakness, medium attack, you inflict poison, or again, for prowess, you inflict both, and you don't need to worry about which hit you triggered first. It's kind of similar to Night Rusher, but again with the ability to kind of like get the full benefit if you have him ramped up fully. And then a very similar situation here with level 2, which inflicts concussion, reducing ability accuracy by 35% for 25 seconds. And medium attack inflicts degeneration, 8,000 or 25 seconds. That's a solid amount, but keep in mind that you can refresh these and probably stack them up. I'm not entirely sure. I'd assume all of them stack though, so that will definitely be able to kind of like add for quite significant amount of damage, and that's why I suspect him actually to be very good champion for medium to long level fights where you can get these debuffs on, maybe stack them up and then keep refreshing with your heavy attacks. Special 3 is going to be your go-to for long fights, and I'd assume that your rotation would be kind of like Special 1, Special 2, and then Special 3, Special 3, Special 3, Special 3 for most part. Again, in Special 3, all personal weakness, poison, concussion, and degeneration effects on opponents are re-triggered at 100% potency and paused indefinitely. This potency increase does not stack multiple times. So here we can see that, yeah, you re-trigger all of them, increase their potency. So all your poison degenerations can deal more damage. Ability accuracy is going to increase from 35% to 75%, and sorry, to 70%. And 70% ability accuracy reduction is already quite significant. And then the last bit, if no personal weakness, poison, concussion, or degeneration effects are active, inflict 2 at random. These will not gain additional potency and will not be paused, but your idea is to go to level 3 only once you have added a ton of debuffs on the opponent anyways. And the fact that you pause them indefinitely and there is no condition where they get unpaused basically means, yeah, you build up your debuffs, get your poison, degeneration, everything else from your Special 1 and Special 2, go to level 3 and then chill and then just build up to like a new level 3 or do whatever you want. And then we have pre-fight and cross-fight abilities, which kind of add a lot more depth to the character and make him a lot more comic accurate, and I absolutely love this part. Now, I don't think it's going to be exactly the most kind of like reliable and used ability, and it's not going to be what makes this champion great, but I absolutely love it from the point of accuracy from actual comic storylines and stuff like that. Once per quest, if Apocalypse has 4 generic code, he can spend them in the pre-fight screen to place crossfight on the next fight. The mutant teammate, excluding Apocalypse, to enter this fight becomes a Horseman of Apocalypse for the rest of the quest. So he can turn any mutant into Horseman of Apocalypse. And Horsemen are gaining the following abilities: 100% bleed resistance, an indefinite prowess increasing special attack by 50%, 30% offensive ability accuracy, and go unblockable for 2 seconds when the opponent purifies debuff. Once per fight, go unstoppable for 3 seconds when struck. And that is a quite significant bonus. A lot of extra damage on special attacks, a lot of extra ability accuracy increase, and that works on any mutant champion. And then there are going to be synergies with specific Horseman champions where that kind of like adds even more on top of all the benefits. But before we get there, let's check out his signature ability, and he is a champion that does not need to be awakened to be awesome. His signature ability effectively just gives him some heal. When Apocalypse doesn't participate in a fight, he enters his rejuvenation chamber to slumber. At the start of his next fight, he regenerates 3,700 health for each fight his teammates won while he slumbered. This can stack up to 2 times. So basically, you win a fight or 2, build him up, make somebody else a Horseman, let him chill for a bit, use your Horseman for a bit, bring him back in, and next time he enters a quest, he gains 7,500 health with Recovery Mastery, about 10,000 health probably. So it's decent. It's definitely not necessary. It's nothing that makes or breaks the character. It's just like a somewhat decent addition. 10,000 health is alright, that you can get like once in 3 fights or something. But yeah, it's not the biggest deal in the world. So he's a champion that it's good enough to be pulled. For instance, if you pull him as a 6-star, take him up to rank 2 without worry, and you're not going to miss out on much. Okay, and synergy bonuses, and he has a lot of very interesting synergies. So first on Apocalypse gains 15% attack rating for each mutant on the team excluding himself. So stack a team with 4 mutant champions and he gains plus 60% attack, and that is a huge increase from synergies itself. Additionally, there are now going to be mutant champions which can enhance this even further. I'm looking at White Magneto here once he gets buffed, so that is gonna add even more damage there. Apocalypse start the fight in quest with maximum genetic code. That synergy is with Kang, Mr. Sinister, or Cable. So if you run in with Cable or Kang, you basically start the quest with max code and you can immediately turn somebody into Horseman or do whatever else you want. So that obviously bypasses the whole ramp up need. And the Kang synergy is actually going to be insane. 20% attack rating, you gain indefinite fury buff, granting 20% attack rating, and you can go up to 20 stacks of fury. So 2x2, that would be 400% attack. And that's quite crazy. That might actually make Kang into a very, very, very hard-hitting champion. 400%. Was it 500% or 400% attack increase that Winter Soldier can get from Killmonger synergy? But yeah, definitely Kang might be a very hard-hitting champion now with Apocalypse synergy, which is quite interesting. Mr. Sinister's synergy is quite rubbish, but Cable synergy is interesting because you gain Incinerate debuffs, gain 150% potency. That's not really important, but additionally, heavy attacks now inflict degeneration on each hit, and their stack limit is removed. So basically, you can just spam the heavies and stack up as many degens as you can, and that could maybe make Cable somewhat usable here or there. But Cable has been featured in so many synergies that could be a way how to actually bring him in some quest. But I'm not betting on it. It's worth a shot, maybe, but Cable will likely still suck. Okay, so Psylocke. And these are more interesting ones because these are kind of like historically the horsemen of Apocalypse. So Psylocke, basic attacks has 30% chance to grant a Psy charge, so that's going to help her to ramp quicker. And also Psylocke does quite a bit of extra damage on heavy attack per each Psy charge, so this might kind of like give her some more damage output. I don't expect that to be nowhere near enough, but still. And also, if this champion is a Horseman of Apocalypse, gain 50% critical damage rating and 30% attack rating when striking opponent with 0 power. So that's definitely gonna do a number on Psylocke's damage, in addition to that prowess, in addition to that ability accuracy reduction, in addition to all the other benefits you get from creating somebody a Horseman. But again, Psylocke is hardly the epiphany of mutant class superiority, right? Sucks, is what I'm trying to say. Gambit, each time kinetic charge is gained, there's 70% chance to gain additional one, whatever, cooldown 0.8 seconds. If this champion is a Horseman of Apocalypse, each kinetic charge grants 10% perfect block chance. So in theory, you can go to 100% perfect block and just block everything. But again, Gambit just kind of sucks. So don't think it will be widely used. Bringer of Death 3 with Wolverine. Personal bleed effects have a chance based on critical rating to be critical bleeds dealing damage based on critical damage rating. If this champion is Horseman of Apocalypse, gain 30% critical rating, 40% critical damage rating. Plus don't forget that prowess, plus don't forget that increased ability accuracy, the rest of the shtick. But Wolverine is practically non-existent currently as a 5-star champion, so I'm not going to focus on that synergy too much. Archangel, however, each hit on heavy attack into stunned opponent, each hit of a heavy attack into a stunned opponent has a 10% chance to pause all neurotoxins for 3 seconds. It's kind of nice, nothing too crazy there. If this champion is Horseman of Apocalypse, neurotoxin stun duration is increased by 30%, so those stuns could be a bit longer. I don't think this is the most powerful thing, but that prowess combined with increased ability accuracy is going to make Archangel definitely even more nutty, but the synergy itself I don't think does nowhere near enough as the Horseman of Apocalypse ability. Okay, now Storm. Each hit of a heavy attack into a shocked opponent has a 60% chance to inflict an additional shock debuff, dealing 90% of modified attack over 8 seconds. This would be fun to check out in Incursions, where you have access to shock effect on light hits. If this champion is Horseman of Apocalypse, shock effects last 50% longer, and heavy attacks refresh all shock debuffs on the opponent. Now that could be quite nutty if you just kind of like spam your heavies and just refresh all your shocks consistently. That definitely could be very interesting for some fun content. Again, doubt it's practical in any serious scenario, but for fun, sure. And Storm Pyramid X. After charging her dormant prowess, Storm has 70% chance to trigger a passive prowess for each prowess buff that is already active. The dormant prowess is her heavy attack charge, by the way. Each increasing special damage by 20% for 6 seconds. So that's going to give her significantly more damage. If this champion is Horseman, gain 30% critical rating and 20% prowess potency. So that would definitely amplify Storm's damage quite a bit. Recommended masteries in Equity. Cool, Apocalypse can apply for indefinite debuffs. Yeah, sure, that could work. Recovery, why not? And Double Edge, sure. And that is about it for Apocalypse here. Now, the video is quite lengthy, so I'm not going to waste too much of your time. But again, I do think that he is going to be definitely a very, very good champion. If his numbers aren't butchered. But from ability description, he certainly does seem quite potent, with quite unique, quite interesting, and I look forward to getting him. I'm certainly interested in actually acquiring this champion myself, and I do think he has the potential to be one of the better champions released. Even if it's gonna end up being for like niche bits of utility, we still need to see how practical and how long time and how much damage he does and all that stuff. But some of the synergies seem definitely interesting. In addition, creating horsemen seem interesting. And I think kind of like the coolest thing would be preventing those purify abilities. So yeah, I do think that he will have some uses in more tricky and more serious endgame scenarios. So I will definitely be trying to get this guy for myself at some point. But that will pretty much do for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!